Over the last few weeks, there have been a few firearm incidents that have occurred here in Hernando County that's left at least one person injured and a few behind bars. So we decided to talk with Steve Champion, the owner of American Gun and Pawn in Brooksville, to see if he could tell us a little bit about gun safety and specific firearms that could accidentally discharge. We're here to talk about gun safety because over the last few weeks we've had a few incidents across the county that have resulted in accidental discharges from firearms. So Steve, tell us a little bit, what's the main thing you would say about gun safety?
Well, daily when we talk to our customers, we preach that we treat every firearm as if it's loaded. For example, the new guns we have here in the store, every one of them, when we touch them, they are cleared immediately to make sure that they're safe, because you never know, what the last person that touched the weapon before that. The other couple of rules we have is don't put your finger on the trigger unless you're going to fire the weapon, and never ever ever point it at anything. It's always pointed in a safe direction. If you do those three things all the time, you'll never ever have an incident.
Right. And Steve's going to show us a little bit, a few guns he's got here, and tell us a little bit about each one and which ones may be more likely to fire if dropped.
I'm going to start with a semi-automatic weapon. If you notice, obviously every single time, pull the magazine, we check the weapon to make sure that it's empty. This weapon here is a semi-automatic, so basically once you rack the first round in, you fire until it's empty, and when it's empty, the slide locks back. This weapon, the safety is only on the trigger. So remember what I said earlier about not putting your finger on the trigger. So when you're carrying, if you're going to withdraw your weapon from your holster, your finger is always out. It's never on the trigger. So this weapon is very, very safe. It will not fire if it hits the ground unless it's defective. This is a semi-automatic single action weapon. So this weapon will not fire unless the hammer is back. So basically you'll rack the weapon. Make sure it's empty. That's all good. Once it's racked, the hammer stays back. This is a safety right here that keeps it from firing. So basically, if you go to pull the trigger, the only way to fire the weapon is to drop the safety, then fire. Okay. This one's a little more dangerous because if you had it back and you didn't put the safety on, this trigger is very, very light. It could fire. So again, there's only one or two ways to carry this. Hammer back with the safety on, or one in the chamber. You can have the safety on, but if you needed to fire it, you draw it, you would have to pull the safety back and then pull the hammer back to fire it. So this is a Derringer. So this is just a two-shot, single-action weapon. So you put two bullets in, you lock the chamber back. The only way this gun will fire is to pull the hammer back and then pull the trigger to fire. And then once that first round fires, you pull it back again and it fires the second round. Now, this gun also on a quarter cock has a safety. You push that safety in, it closes the firing pin off. So even if you did fire it, it would not fire, it wouldn't go all the way forward, it would stop. Okay. Now if the safety's off, in theory, this gun should be safe too, because there's not a rim fire, it should not fire if it hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people may look at this gun and say, well, why doesn't it have a safety around the trigger? But that really would have, it's irrelevant in this case, correct?
It's irrelevant, and the reason why these two guns don't have trigger guards is there's no reason to guard the trigger because it's a single action gun. Okay. You have to pull the hammer back for it to fire, so the trigger is useless without pulling the hammer back. This is a very, very popular, just about 50% of the population that carries a weapon carries one of these because it's so small. It's a .22 Magnum 5-shot revolver. Basically, this is a single action gun. To load it, you have to pull the cylinder out, load the weapon, put it back in. Once it's loaded, right, in order to fire it, you have to pull the hammer back, pull the trigger again. Hammer back, trigger, hammer back, trigger. This is probably one of the most guns. Well, I mean, there's an accident could happen with this gun. I mean, you could accidentally fire it. So let's say the hammer is on the round. You see here, the hammer's on the round. If this gun drops, it will fire. If it dropped, if it hit like on the ground like this, and it's on a round, this is called rim fire. It's a .22 Magnum rim fire. So rim fire, it will fire if that hammer hits the ground. Okay. Now the safety on this gun is you got to put the hammer in between the cylinders. So if it's in between the cylinders like that, it will not fire. With any firearm, if you're going to carry it on your person, you want some kind of holster for it. You want to be able to put it into something. Now, a lot of people, on a small weapon like this, they'll just stick it in their pocket. So if it was in the safe mode and it's a single action, you're fairly safe. But let's say you had this weapon and you put it in your pocket and it was loaded, what happens when you reach in and you accidentally grab the trigger? So by having a holster, you can put it in. You can either put it in your waist, you can put a smaller one in your pocket, or you can even have one on your hip like I have here, where I can cover it up on my shirt. The other option for women is that we sell concealed weapon purses. These have holsters in here. They're Velcroed in, right? So we carry a whole line of purses that are different than regular purses, right? So these purses have your normal inside with the pocket, pockets, etc. So that way, if you open your purse in the grocery store, your firearm's not exposed. This one has a separate compartment that has a holster built in, where you can securely hold your firearm in that separate compartment. Now, a lot of people don't read the instructions. It's important to read the instructions on the firearm to know how it operates and what the safety procedures are. Cool. Okay, these are what's called snap caps. So we have them in every caliber. So they're an exact replica of a bullet, but they're not real bullets. And the good thing about these, and the reason why we recommend them, is that you can practice loading and unloading your weapon without putting live rounds in. So let's say you're going to put these in, you can practice racking it, you can practice unloading it. When the bullet comes out, you can unload the weapon. So, and the reason why this is a good idea, especially for novice, is if you're putting live rounds in there and you make a oops and you pull the trigger, you don't get any redos.
We just learned just now, actually, that a incident yesterday at Hernando High School where a suspect brought a gun onto campus and threatened a student. We just found out that he was charged. What would you tell people that, who are maybe new to having their license, their concealed carry license, before they start carrying their firearm around? What kind of things should they know, at least in this state?
Well, number one, you need to know the law. And we have a law book as well. There's a lot of laws out there you should study and know the law. But the other thing is, you should act different when you're carrying a weapon. I avoid conflict 100%. If there's conflict, I'm going the other direction because I know I'm armed and I don't want to be a part of that, right? So, I mean, someone like that should not have a firearm. He should be arrested. He should not be chasing someone on the school property with a firearm. I mean, that's common sense. So, people like that give law-abiding citizens a bad name, and 99.9% of all firearms carriers in this county, they don't cause problems. They don't break the laws.
Now, Steve gave us quite a bit of good information, especially about specific firearms that could accidentally discharge. But I want you to be aware, most people who carry a firearm legally are doing it safely. These isolated incidents occur once in a while, but for the most part, people like myself who carry a firearm carry it safely. And we want to know that we're out there to protect ourselves, our property, and others who may find themselves in danger. Reporting from Spring Hill, I'm Tom Lemons.